So in 2022, we're re-entering the ground effect era. So today, I'm going to tell you about the Red Bull and Aston Martin conspiracy. You know how Red Bull and Aston Martin has been developing the AMR RB001 or the Valkyrie?
Quoting Top Gear, it's a car that started life back in 2017 as the AM RB001. Another car that began its life in 2017 was the development car of the 2022 regulation. Quoting Pat Simmons, when we started this project back in 2017, I think that's quite an interesting coincidence, isn't it? Both of these cars utilizes ground effect as a main source of downforce. What would this mean for Red Bull and Aston Martin racing team? Having already developed the Valkyrie, a car that is very similar to the 2022 regulation. So my question remains, is this a James Bond villain plan, or is it just purely coincidence?
The story of ground effect began in 1977 with Team Lotus. The development of Type 78 aerodynamics was led by Peter Wright while studying various sidepod designs at the Imperial College wind tunnel. While working on his design, some of the adhesive holding the rudimentary components together started to sink to the floor. He noticed that the downforce figure has gone through the roof. So he didn't really understood what has happened at the time. However, after some experimentation, he had placed some cards along the side pods. He discovered that downforce he saw where it shot through the roof has returned. This is because the floor is sealed, restricting the low pressure air from escaping, making the floor and the diffuser much more effective. Ever since, cars went a second a lap faster than the year before, overnight.
Quoting Mario Andretti, the Type 78, well, I tell you, it's like painted to the road.
With the reintroduction of ground effects, it can reproduce the traditional way of making downforce, where air travels around the wing at different speeds, creating negative lift, or downforce. Ground effects could reproduce this outcome with a high degree of efficiency with a lot less drag and dirty air. These were two major factors that have been contributed to the previous regulation inability to promote closed racing. And by 1983, ground effect was officially banned from the series following an escalating case of accidents. Cars and tracks were not safe back then. After nearly 4 decades, technology has come a long way, and I very much welcome its return. I think it's fair to assume that whoever has the most R&D data going into the new regulation would probably dominate the next couple of seasons, right? That's because research and development is such a big thing in this sport. It is such a significant part of the sport, to the point where the FIA have to close the gap in the disparity of the research and development between each team with a budget cap, as well as restriction on wind tunnel testing. You can now only test a 60% scale model in your wind tunnel instead of a full scale one, with the speed being capped at only 180 km per hour on a car that would reach 370 km on a long straight. This creates a research and development handicap for every team, with the ones finishing first in the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes, having the least amount of wind tunnel time, and the last place in the Constructors' Championship, Haas, having the most amount of wind tunnel. Before this rule, it was common for larger teams with funds to spend 100% of their wind tunnel time testing the latest model iterations. So we can see this with Qatar 2021, where F1 cars had never really raced there. Some teams have opted to MotoGP for some data on how they should approach their weekend. With the new regulation having a wildly different aerodynamic philosophy from the last 4 decades, with the reintroduction of ground effects, the team with the most research and development in this space would no doubt have an advantage. And I think my conspiracy kind of evolves around this point. So imagine if you can spend as much time as you want in the wind tunnel, testing design iterations at any speed and scale you want. That's exactly what Aston Martin and Red Bull have just done with their co-developed ground effect car, the Valkyrie. While modeling my 3D car, I have noticed that the Venturi tunnel on the Valkyrie and the F1 concept car is suspiciously similar visually. Beside the dimension of the monocoque having to accommodate 2 people, the principle is practically the same and mirrors each other. Both the Valkyrie and the F1 2022 regulation car has started its life in 2017. How much of this is coincidence and how much of it is planned? If the Valkyrie was a test bed for the new car all along, this is some Bond villain style move, ironically befitting the AMR's association and Aston Martin's previous title sponsorship with Red Bull. After 4 decades, there's sure to be new research and ground effects that had yet to be considered in relation to a car's context. Valkyrie was the perfect mirror to try out all of these new hypotheses and ideas without having any test limitations. If this is the case, wouldn't that give Red Bull a gigantic advantage? An important note why Aston Martin Racing Team would also benefit from the Valkyrie, despite Adrian Newey being a main contributor to its design. It's because the development data would have to be shared with Aston Martin for them to take part in completing the vehicle. A good way of determining who did what is everything below the shoulder line is designed by Adrian, while everything above is designed by Aston Martin. Imagine an aerofoil. For it to work efficiently, both sides must have a symbiotic relationship with each other. We've seen Mercedes taking this approach with the previous step change in engine regulation ahead of 2014, where they began the development as early as 2010. The result speaks for itself, having won 8 consecutive Constructors' Champion in a row, engine being a major part of its success. Yeah, I think principle matters, no matter whether it's a V4 inline engine versus a V6 hybrid. I think that speaks volume in regards to their success. And to compare with Valkyrie, going into 2022 regulation where the Venturi tunnel is going to be a gigantic portion of how downforce is created in this new era. Newey so far, according to Top Gear, started in 2017. That had given Newey 5 years of technology development in this regard. And this is Adrian Newey we're talking about. Perhaps one of the most mightiest aerodynamicists that has ever lived. He literally did his final year project in his university called Ground Effects Aerodynamics as Applied to a Sports Car. So I think we might be seeing history repeating itself in a different form. Where Mercedes have dominated the V6 hybrid era engine, Adrian Newey could be dominating the ground effects for years to come. And to play devil's advocate, could we apply this principle with Mercedes Project 1 car? In my opinion, not so much, since the Project 1 is using more of a conventional flat floor with a large diffuser, aligning itself with the previous generation of regulation. Project 1 emphasis is also around its triumphant hybrid era engine over the extreme aerodynamics philosophies. Let's quickly talk about the drivers lineup for Red Bull and Aston Martin. If Adrian Newey made a banger of a car, if anyone can drive it, it's definitely Max Verstappen. On the other hand, Aston Martin has Sebastian Vettel, a 4-time drivers' champion, a person who could definitely drive just as ferocious as Hamilton or Verstappen had he been given the right tools. With my wild predictions, we could see Seb's rise to glory once again. After all, he'll be driving an Adrian Newey designed car with a Mercedes powertrain. And I think Aston Martin has a pretty interesting intersection between two big teams. Aston Martin having finished their season in 7th place in the championship standing would also give them a lot more wind tunnel compared to Red Bull, who have finished 2nd. Not to mention being the only team who has developed rather successfully with both high rake and low rake cars, as well as doing well in a financially restricted environment. From my understanding, the rule around the ground effects floor would be rather restrictive. This would probably hinder Newey's ingenuity more than Aston Martin's effectiveness. After all, Aston Martin was the one designing the top surface of the Valkyrie. I hope we see Sebastian's rise to the glory once again, because beside being such a wholesome gentleman, I hope that this conspiracy of mine kind of turns out true, so we can see Sebastian in front of the grid again. That would be nice, right? My biggest question still was, both Valkyrie and the new Formula 1 car started the development in 2017. Was the Valkyrie a direct response Red Bull took the moment they got wind of the future regulation changes? Red Bull, what do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out. No, it wasn't intentional. Not at all. I have found my answer on the first book I've picked up, an image with the date as the MR1 2014, which was later named
AMR RB001.
So the AMR RB001 was developed as early as 2014 in Red Bull Advanced Technologies. And I think this is just a really nice coincidence that they have found themselves in through the development of the Valkyrie, and just so conveniently that the 2022 kind of fell onto their lap. So when Top Gear was quoting 2017, I believe they were referring to the more refined second iteration and the christening of the name Valkyrie instead of the actual first reveal, which was named AMRB001, even though they were implying that the latter was the case. This was the catalyst of all of my wild theories, is that Top Gear was quoting 2017. And I think this small little mistake has taken me on a wild goose chase. But frankly, what else am I gonna do during the winter's break? So fun fact, the development car for the Valkyrie was nicknamed Nebula, NE for Newey, BUL for Bull, Red Bull, and A for Aston Martin. It seems like the universe is blessing them, both metaphorically and literally. So to quickly recap, RB001 began its life as a sketch at Red Bull Advanced Technologies in 2014, and the CFD, which stands for Computer Fluid Dynamics, was completed by autumn 2015. We have to remember that Red Bull is still a racing team, so Red Bull still needed manufacturing assist, and Newey and Horner knew some people in Aston Martin, and after the NDA was signed, Aston Martins were shown what Adrian Newey has been conjuring up recently. Ironically, Aston Martin has also been working on a mid-engine hypercar of their own at the time. It goes to show that this project wasn't one-sided initiation as we might think. That being said, we can't really undermine the enormity of Adrian Newey's design contribution either. My first ever introduction to the AMR RB001 was through Shmee's 150 video. He's among my favorite YouTuber that seems to have an exclusive look into what most manufacturers have been up to. His video has shown us the first iteration while it was still named AMR RB001 in 2016. By July 2017, this is the car that I believe Top Gear was referring to. It was a more refined second iteration that was revealed and christened the name Valkyrie. In its absence for nearly a whole year, it returned with a bang. An 11,000 RPM bang to be exact, produced by Cosworth just before 2018's Christmas. Have a listen to this. And my god, was it the most brilliant piece of kinetic art ever conceived. In 2019, it was the first time we got to see a public display of it being driven around Silverstone leading up to that year's British Grand Prix. By February 2020, we got to see Max and Albon having a go at the Valkyrie around the Silverstone. And I love this quote. Albon says, that was quite fast when he stepped out of the car. So to speak on Albon's behalf, what he meant was, I hear mang leo sat. To answer my own question, whether or not Valkyrie was a secret and well choreographed test bed leading up to the 2022 regulation to give Red Bull and Aston Martin an unfair advantage. Definitely not, as the Valkyrie chronology demonstrates. It will give them advantages by allowing some data and designs to be considered ahead of time. It's not like you can forget the knowledge you already acquired, and I believe there was a lot to be learned from the Valkyrie heading into the new era. At the end of Newey's book, the very last sentence, he wrote, "How can I do better? Nobody knows except him." And honestly, I can't wait to see what he would conjure up in the Red Bull paddock. Thanks for watching my videos. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like it, consider subscribing. I'll be making more of these videos where I'll just go explore goofy ideas and hopefully you find it entertaining. That concludes my conspiracy, and I hope everyone has a wholesome day. And for now, bye!
This is aimless love, sailing alone around my room until my day is done. Can you find the beauty in the small things? This is aimless love, sailing alone around my room until my